someday the Speaker of the House. You have to understand that we have many ways to walk into the chamber, but one day I saw him get there early and greet every member who walked in one way, and when they left, he was there shaking hands with every member, Republican and Democrat, who went out the other way. And he's just, as is Ed, just a great member, and as are my two new colleagues, Joe and Chris. A little confusing to have three Chris's in the delegation, but in fact, one time I was at a meeting where I was a new member, and a senior member was talking about all the great things that I had done. He said, Chris has done this, Chris has done that. I said, this is absurd, I haven't done that. He looked at me and he said, Chris, would you like to say anything? I about to stand up, and Chris Dodd was right behind me. So I have learned to make sure my last name is called. I want to be very candid about this meeting, because I think we need to go where the truth takes us. And one of the big failures, I think, in Congress has been that we haven't been having meaningful debate for any number of years. And we all lose. We got into this mess in a bipartisan way, and we need to get out of it in a bipartisan way. One reason why we have this select committee is getting good legislation out of the Commerce Committee is difficult. You had the senior member of the entire delegation, in Congress, John Dingell, who literally didn't believe that minivans, SUVs, cars, and trucks should get better mileage. And you understood he was from Detroit, and you have this nexus between labor and management in the car industry. No layoffs. If we have layoffs, we're going to cover you, but don't allow there to be intervention on the part of the government. So we have really been punting this issue for years, to the credit, obviously, of Democrats. More Democrats have wanted to deal with this issue than Republicans. But the fact is this, that we haven't been dealing with it because we haven't wanted to face up to some tough choices. There are lots of inconvenient truths that confront our country. Global warming is one of them. Energy independence is another. We will have to compromise ultimately to have energy independence. And I think Ed knows this, and he's trying to steer us in a direction where that compromise will happen. We have in this country energy independence when it comes to electricity. And we sometimes forget that. Admittedly, it's coal, it's nuclear, and it's hydro. But industry throughout the United States, you wouldn't know it in New England because our energy costs are so high here. But energy costs for our manufacturers around the country is below the world average in cost, or right at the world average. And there is a view that we will ultimately be able to compete with the rest of the world, not because of labor costs, but energy costs will trump labor costs. And that you will start to see more manufacturing come back to this country. But it is going to be a mixture of getting conservation to make sure that we have better mileage in our SUVs, cars, minivans, and trucks, and not the pathetic 35 miles a gallon by the year 2020. We have Europe going to 48 miles by the year 2012. So it's a good step forward. It didn't have that movement under Republicans. Candidly, we have it now under a new Democratic Congress, but I think we are going to have to be moving in a much more quicker way. It is going to involve alternative fuels in a big way, but alternative fuels will not replace conventional fuels in the short run. It is going to involve nuclear power, which some environmentalists don't want to see happen, but some environmentalists say it better happen if we're going to deal with global warming. It is going to involve our producing more oil and gas in this country. One of the great ironies is to look at Canada. They are mining their coast for gas. They are getting that gas from their coast. They are transferring it by pipeline to Canada, then coming down to heat in Massachusetts 400,000 homes with natural gas. That's what's happening. And the absurdity that we would want to continue to pay people overseas to bring in oil and gas when we can produce it here is something that has to be part of this debate. We have a huge balance of payments problems. We have a national security problem. Oil and gas from Russia, from the Middle East, from Nigeria, from Venezuela. No, we want it from countries like Canada and the United States. So I would just say, in conclusion, that we've got a great country. We need to be more plain speaking about what's going on. We need to have Republicans and Democrats work together. We need to see a vote in Congress to understand what people feel about drilling, not in Anwar, that's protected, but off our coast. And I'll conclude by this comment about drilling. If Great Britain hadn't mined their northern slope, they would not be the power they are today. Norway is the richest country in the world because they've managed their resources and they have mined the North Sea. We go all the way from Canada and then there's nothing happening in our coastline. I may disagree with some of my colleagues about this, but I am absolutely convinced that it has to be part of this mix. And I'll just end by saying that John Larson can boast about UTC, but given that GE is right in the center of my district, I can boast about GE. So let's just collectively, as Connecticut legislators, just recognize we've got a great state with lots of innovation, and we're very proud of all our companies. And we love our Yale as well.
Gentleman's time has expired. Now we've Jim Calhoun.